All right, guys. All right, so we did simple interest last week. How is simple interest accumulated? Over time, okay. It's accumulated over time. But like if I put $1,000 in and I leave it in there for 50 years, what is the interest always being like based on? The original, right? That $1,000. No matter how much how long I've left it in there, it's still on the original amount I put in. So there's another type of interest called compound interest, which takes how much you put in, and then when you earn interest, it takes that interest, puts it back on the principal. So that principal amount is always changing, right? It's not 1,000 every time for 100 years, right? It changes. Every time I accumulate that interest, it keeps putting back on, so my principal amount gets bigger and bigger as time goes on. So obviously, a better choice for earning interest. So first thing, compound interest. It is money earned on the money deposited plus the previous interest. So again, that interest keeps adding back on to that principal. So every time it's calculating it on that interest being added on every single time. For just a reminder, for simple interest, only the original principal is used to compute the interest. Bless you. Bless you. All right. Interest can be compounded annually. So if it's annually, how many times is that a year? Once. All right, so that's one time per year. What about if it's semi-annually? Good. 2 times per year. Quarterly? Good, that'd be 4 times per year. Perfect. Daily is 365 times per year. That would mean every single day they would take the interest you earned that day, add it back onto the principal. So then the next day be on a little bit more, and the next day it'd be much. I don't know of any off the top of my head, but again, I don't have a lot of money to invest to like try to find that. It does exist though. It does. Brian? You had interest. Yes. That's about all mine ever is too. Sometimes 2 cents. It's a big day. Don't spend it all in one spot. Right? All right. You guys ever heard of your APR? Have you ever heard that when you see about loans talk about? Right. Never knew what the heck that thing was, right? That's APR is your annual percentage rate. So it's the interest paid or charged per year. So what is your interest rate? What's your APR? So it's asking you, like, I have an interest rate of 6%. Right? Higher interest rates, you usually find those on loans, savings accounts and whatnot. Those are usually a little lower. Seems almost backwards, doesn't it? I know, like the activity we did last week, a lot of those cards that you pulled, they weren't always, or the card one and then the orange card one that we did on Friday. A lot of those were loans. I think I threw some of you for a loop. You're like, wait a minute, we're not just talking about savings accounts. No, we're also talking about loans, things that have interest rates on those. And then there's APY, annual percentage yield. Sorry, that one's a lot of words. It's the simple interest rate that would be required to give the same dollar amount of interest that the compounding gave. Right? So it would be like, what would my interest rate have to be if I had simple interest to get the same amount of money that I have with compound interest? So it's just figuring out what that rate would need to be so they'd be the same. And obviously, the more you compound your interest, if it's compounded semi-annually or quarterly or daily, the APY, the interest rate for a simple interest loan to be the same would have to be higher because the more you compound, the more money you make. Okay, so if you can get loans, or I'm sorry, get savings accounts as you get older, look for the ones that compound the most often. The more they compound, the more money you make. Do you guys know who the cartoon character is on there? Just making sure you guys aren't that far out of it, right? You know who Scrooge McDuck is? From DuckTales? Yeah? Good? Okay. They brought back DuckTales. I've got to tell you, I was really upset. I was so excited when I heard they were bringing back DuckTales because it was one of my favorite cartoons. And then I watched the first episode with my kids. I'm like, that's not DuckTales. Like, they look funny, you know? Like, they changed the way they animate them, and it's not the same. They have one on now that they talk? So my kids watch Tom and Jerry, but the ones they watch are always the old ones. That ain't right. Yeah, they're not supposed to talk. What one? What? Never even heard of it. Mm-mm. Never heard of it. That's how I feel about DuckTales. Go back to the original.
Formulas.
Of course there's formulas. This is a nice one. You should wait till some that we're going to get later this week. This one's nice. Yeah, I know. I'm going to be the teacher here, and I'm going to make you actually learn stuff. I'm sorry. All right, what was the simple interest rate formula that I taught you? I equals PRT. There it is. All right, that one was real easy. That one was easy to memorize. This one's a little different. So we don't have just I. Like, that's one thing we got to keep in mind as we go through these different formulas. They're set up slightly different. This one's set up B equals, where B is my ending balance. So this formula takes the principal I put on, and when I run it through the formula, I don't get how much interest I earned, but I get what my new balance is. So instead of me having to take, okay, I started with this much, I made this much interest, and then we had to add them together. Do you guys remember doing that on the cards? If you missed that word that said total, right, we had to add them. This one you don't have to. The only difference is if I ask you how much interest did you earn, instead of adding them to figure that out, you'd have to subtract them. Because this is going to give you your new ending. If I put in $1,000, I run it through this formula, and then it says I have like $1,200. Did I earn $1,200 in interest? How much interest did I earn? If I put in 1,000 and my ending balance is 1,200, it'd be 200. Thank you. You guys awake? I don't think you are. All right. So we have B, this is your ending balance, equals P, which is your principal or the original balance that you started with, and then times 1 plus R is your interest rate, again, always has a decimal, divided by N. There's a new variable for you. N is the number of times compounded annually. So how many times per year is it going to compound? If I say it compounds annually, it's going to compound once. If it's quarterly, right, it's 4 times. What about monthly? 12. Weekly? 52. Okay. And then T, again, is in years, just like the last formula. But again, notice the N shows up twice. It's in the bottom of the fraction, and then it's up there as an exponent as well. Okay, so you got 2 things going on there. All right, so let's try some. And I go ahead and throw the formula on there right next to it. Yay, excited, right?
So happy.
All right, so number 1, Marie deposits $1,650 for 3 years at 3% interest compounded daily. What is her ending balance? Now again, as we go through, because we have I think there's 6 formulas altogether. Right now we're up to 2. Okay, so we're going to have a lot of formulas. You have to begin to recognize, how do you know which formula is which? How do you know whether to use the simple interest formula? It said simple interest, right? It seems obvious, but kids miss that as we go through this chapter. This one is telling you that it is compounding whatever. So you know it's your compound interest formula. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug it into our formula. So we have B equals, what is my principal? Parentheses, 1 plus the rate, good, 0.03, divided by the N. Good, it is compounded daily, which is 365. And then it's N again, so another 365 times, how many years? 3. Okay, so now let's talk about this formula. If you are using the graphing calculators, these formulas are like beautiful. You can just type them in exactly the way they look and it works out great. If you're using a scientific calculator, they get a little trickier because you need different sets of parentheses in different places. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice. Everyone practice to make sure we're good with this. So if you're using the scientific one, or I'm sorry, the graphing one, as long as you're using that fraction button, you should be able to type it in the whole thing at once exactly the way you see it. It should go in effortless. If you are using the scientific ones, you're going to want to calculate this first so that you don't have to type that in as a multiplication. That'll save you a lot of effort. Okay? I don't know. We're going to talk here in a minute. Hold on. 1650. So you put in 1650. 3 years later, you get an ending balance of 1650. Does that make sense? No, you didn't earn any interest. All right. When you type it in, hold on. Let's make sure that way it's going to answer a lot of your questions. You should get $1,805.38. If you did not get that, we need to talk. See you later. All right, so number 2, Kate deposits $2,350 in an account that earns interest at a rate of 3.1% compounded monthly. All right, so there's our rate, there's our principal, and we know it's monthly, which is how many times? That's 12. What is her ending balance after 5 years? So there's your time. So again, going back to your formula, B equals the principal, 2350, parentheses, 1 plus my rate would be 0.031 divided by N, the compounded monthly, which is 12, and then 12 times 5 for the years. All right, so again, practice typing it in. Let's see what we get. See if we need to help. Because if we can't type things in the calculator, right, it doesn't matter if you know the right formula or not. But one thing I will always suggest to you guys is please write down the formula. Like write down, like on a quiz, a test, a homework, whatever it is, write down what you're typing in your calculator so I can see that. So then I'm like, okay, they used the right formula, they just must have typed something in wrong. Okay? So for this one, you should get $2,743.45. How are we doing? What? You have a question? On what's in your calculator? All right, guys. Take a look at number 3. I know some of you have been looking ahead and are like, what the heck? All right, so Riley invested $13,482 at 2.6% compounded hourly for 6 years. What is her ending balance and how much interest did she earn? All right, so I think what's throwing you is the hourly. Remember, when we're talking compounded, it's how many times per year. So how many hours are in a year? Well, so hourly, there's 24 in a day, and how many days are there? 365. Yes, 8760. So 8760 hours per year. So So that'll be your n, right? That is my n value. All right, so plugging things in the formula then. So B equals my principal, 13,482, times 1 plus my rate, 0.026, divided by the n value, which we had to find first, which was 8760, times 8760, how many years? 6. So again, that's what you would type in your calculator. But I want you to get in the habit, guys, always write down the formulas. Write down your numbers in the formula. All right, so let me give you a minute, type it in, see if we can get the right balance. All right, we should have gotten $15,758.11. Are we okay? All right, now this question asked for more than her ending balance. It also asked how much interest did she earn. How did you get that? Good. This is her ending balance, right? 15,758.11. Well, how much did she start with? You subtract what she actually started with, 13,482. Right? She put in the 13,482. So her balance after 6 years is all the interest that has been accumulated. So if we subtract them, she earned $2,276.11. And that's her interest. But does that make sense why I'm subtracting? You have all this money that she's got at the end, since it's been sitting in this account, all of that's not like what she earned. You have to subtract how much she actually put in there. So in 6 years, she made over $2,200. Just sitting her money in there. That's pretty nice. All right, guys. Another new formula. That's right. We're not going to learn one. We're going to learn 2 formulas today. Because that first one was so hard, right? This one's not bad either. This one is your actual annual percentage yield. So again, this is the percent you would need to earn the same amount of money with simple interest versus the compounding interest. Okay? So you'd have to have obviously a higher percentage than the original one. So same idea where it has the interest rate as a decimal, n is the number of times compounded per year. So same idea. So number 4, Sharon deposits $8,000 in a 1-year CD at 3.2% interest compounded daily. What is Sharon's annual percentage yield to the nearest 100th%? So in other words, what percent would she have to earn the same amount of interest in simple interest versus compounding? Okay, that's what you're finding. Just make sure we're clear on what it is you're doing. All right, so we're going to plug in our numbers into the formula again. So APY equals 1 plus the rate was 0.032 divided by n. What's my n? This is where you guys talk to me. What's n? Thank you. It says daily right there. 365. It's got an n again for the exponent and then minus 1. Now, this one's a little trickier in the scientific calculators, just so we're aware of that. If you're using the graphing ones, make sure after you typed in the exponent, your n value, you have to arrow over to drop the cursor back down so minus 1 shows up not as an exponent. So again, get a little practice here, typing this in. Very smart people. So APY equals, your calculator is going to give you 0.0325. And again, we'll talk if we have calculator issues, but what does that mean? What percent is that? That's 3.25%. Well, here's something just to kind of keep in mind, right? If we look up at the top, it was talking it was 3.2% if you have compounding. But then if I'm going to have it as simple interest, it has to be 3.25. It's only just slightly higher would it actually be. Yeah.
You see, what I did for this, my
Oh, yeah, it says round to the nearest hundredth.
what I did,
2 decimal spots.
I just entered that all.
I got it. All right, guys, talk to me. How are we doing on the calculator? Anyone not able to get that? Now, the question came up from someone else. They're like, well, wait a minute. When I typed this in, I didn't just get 0.0325. There was other numbers here. Does that happen? Yeah, because the question asked me to round to the nearest hundredth. So I only wrote down what I needed to give me 2 decimal spots when I switched it to percentage. If you write down 0.03 and you're like, that's my answer, wrong. You're not recognizing you're finding a percent. You have to flip that back to a percentage, not just the decimal form of it. Okay? All right, go ahead and try the next one on your own. All right, so in your formula, APY equals, again, just plug in numbers in here, 1 plus my rate, 0.041. It is compounded daily, so 365. 365 is my exponent, and then minus 1. So your calculator is going to give you 0.0418. I think there was a 4 after that. Blah, blah, blah. So when I want it rounded to the nearest hundredth, keep in mind this moves it 2 spots. So it's 4.1. Since that's a 4, is that going to round up to a 9 or stay an 8? It's going to stay an 8. And please label it with a percent sign if you did not already do so. Okay, labels are important. $ signs, percent signs. I've had some students solve these and then they tell me it's like they put a $ sign on it. You clearly have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, the P in APY stands for, what's the P stand for? Percent. Annual percentage yield. And again, I want to make sure, what does this mean? What did I just find? What's APY? No, my percent is 4.1%. What's that mean? No. Nope. Nope. Oh my gosh, no one listens to me.
Something you said a while ago. How about that?
This was compounded daily, right? APY is what the percentage would have to be if it was simple interest to get the same amount of money. So if this is 4.1, if I would have gotten something less than 4.1, that's a red flag. It's wrong. It should be higher because simple interest only accumulates on what you put in, right? So if I'm using compounding daily, I have a lower interest rate to earn the same amount of money. I would have to take a higher one for simple interest. So this is the simple interest rate it would take to earn the same amount of money as it does being compounded. That's what APY is. We're going to work on that. All right. One last thing. I'm glad Ryan brought it up. Real quick, if you would like to have the graphing calculator, like let's say you like using it because it's easier to type stuff in, but like you're at home working on homework, Wabbit EMU is an app, it's free, that you can download the graphing calculator. And it literally looks just like that calculator. I know, that's what I think of too. Now, the only downfall to this is if you have an iPhone, this app is not available for iPhones, which sucks. I know I'm an iPhone user. Take that back. All right, but those of you who like using graphing ones, if you want to have it on your phone, as long as you don't have an iPhone, it's free. You can download it. If you need help, let me know. But it works. It literally looks just like that. It works out really nice.